Today is our Rev Up series. It's the second to last Rev Up for this quarter. We are covering today's signed agreement to close of escrow for a listing. Next week, we're going to talk contract to close, like how to put those people, what kind of follow-up plan do you put your closed clients on? What should your system and process look like for that? How do we stay in contact with them so that we get those referrals and that repeat business? So that'll be next week. Next week's class will be in person and on Zoom. So you can either join us in the office or you can join us via Zoom next week. In addition to that, Monday's class next week is open Q&A for forms. And again, that one will also be in person and on Zoom, assuming that my flight leaves at the right time. I will be in the office. And then next Wednesday, we'll be on Zoom. We're confirming it. It's supposed to be Cindy Dillard talking about tax-free wealth. And that'll just be on Zoom. So that's kind of our lineup for next week. Tomorrow's classes are canceled, both AM and PM, due to the Juneteenth holiday. So let's get started with our listing signed agreement to close of escrow. Dun, dun, dun. Today, we are covering additional listing documents. We talked about these yesterday during our forum, so I'm just going to briefly touch on them today. Tips for getting the property market ready, preparing to go on market, systems and processes, showing the property, no offers, now what, negotiating the sale, opening escrow, be a problem solver, and then create customers for life. We're just touching on that because we're really digging into it next week. As we go along, if anybody has any questions, feel free to raise your little Zoom hand, unmute yourself, and just interrupt me. Throw them in the chat box. I have all those open and ready to go. So any way you want to communicate works. If you're watching this on replay, you're welcome to throw your questions in the comments box, or you can reach out to me directly. Fabulous. In addition to the listing agreement, so the RLA and all those documents that are attached to that, I also like to make sure that I send my sellers the market conditions advisory, the statewide buyer and seller advisory, the disclosure information advisory, the wildfire disaster advisory, so many advisories, the water heater smoke detector statement of compliance, water conserving plumbing fixtures, carbon monoxide disclosure. If we're not going on the MLS as active within 3 days, or you can actually do it as a coming soon too in the Barry's one, but if it's not going active in the MLS within 3 days, you need the exclusion form for the MLS. And then the city and county disclosures. It says there the seller's affidavit of non-foreign status, because the slide was actually created before Glide started doing that. So everything but that seller's affidavit I send out through AuthentiSign, our free signing system that we have as part of our Zip Forms membership. In addition to those through Glide, which we have Glide access through Barry's. So if you log into Barry's on that homepage, you've got other productivity tools, Glide's on there. I send out the seller property questionnaire, the transfer disclosure statement, or the exempt seller disclosure if the seller is exempt. Your lead-based paint hazards if the property was built before 1978, your earthquake hazards if the house was built before 1965, and then also the seller's affidavit of non-foreign status should go on this page as well, because now Glide allows you to do that. So those are kind of all the documents that set you up for success. The other one that's not on here is the square footage and lot size addendum. So I usually send that to my sellers as well. That usually, once we get all these things taken care of on both this and the Glide, that takes care of all of the seller required disclosures minus signing like the NHD page. Okay. So that kind of makes sure you got everything done up front. These property disclosures that I send through Glide, I do them through Glide because they all have questions the seller needs to answer. Makes it really simple to send it through Glide. Make sure they don't skip anything and that they answer every single question, so I don't have to kick it back to them and ask them to finish it. In addition, these things that I send through Glide, I usually send about a week before our on-market date. So everything else can get signed 2 months in advance. It really doesn't matter. But these things, the property questionnaire, the transfer disclosure statement, anything like that, I send the week before our on-market date. So it's as accurate as possible. set dates and getting started. I would recommend sitting down and spending some time putting together your listing action plan. What is your process, right? How many days? When do you get started? We want to do a pre-listing walkthrough, right? That's where we're going to look at the property, make suggestions of things that need to go in storage, things that need to get packed up, furniture that needs to get moved around as to work with the flow of the property. Oftentimes we do this kind of walkthrough prior to our during our listing presentation. And there's not necessary, if you did a thorough walkthrough then, it's not really necessary that you do a secondary walkthrough. You just give them that list of things. You might want to do a second walkthrough right before, like the day before photos or something to that effect. When do you want to send out seller documents? Again, that first list of seller documents, those can go out anytime. I usually recommend sending out that second list through Glide the week before your on market date. You'll need to put together an action plan of when do we want to have any pre-listing inspections done? When do we want our photos done? How far in advance of our on market date? When do we open pre-escrow? What days of the week do we prefer to go on market? What's your pricing strategy revisit, right? Have something in writing that documents this. We'll talk a little bit more about this in the future, but how many days do we go without a showing? How many showings do we go without an offer where we come back and revisit what we're listed at? And then what's your open house policy? And then any other marketing that you're going to do. Are you going to post it on social media? Are you, doing flyers, door hangers, door knocking? What's that look like? Put together a listing action plan so that it makes it easy and put it in writing. I know I talk with a lot of you and you're like, oh yeah, I have my plan and it's way up here. Well, that's great. Put it on paper with your days before your on market date on there so that you know exactly what that's going to look like, so that every single listing you get, all you have to do is pull up your listing action plan and you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing each day of the week leading up to your on market dates. It's a good idea on our walkthrough to remind our sellers that how you live in your home is not how you sell it. Okay. So again, we may want to rearrange or remove furniture. If you walk into a bedroom and there's 3 dressers in there, like maybe ask them to remove 2 of them. They're preparing to move. Go ahead and start packing things up. If the beds are shoved up against the wall, on 2 sides, pull it away from the wall. It'll make the room feel more spacious. Make sure that when you're walking through living rooms and family rooms that it has good flow, that you can get through that room, you can get into it easily, that it doesn't, people aren't like tripping over couches and furniture to try to see the space. You can ask them, I usually let my sellers know like, hey, we're preparing to move. So now is a good time for those things that you aren't going to need in the next 3 months. Like, let's go ahead and get them boxed up and ready to go. Let's go ahead and sort through that, clean out closets, open cabinets, all of that stuff. Anastasia has a question.
If it's vacant, should we go get like a few knickknacks and maybe put them up, or no, just leave it empty?
You always can. So it is a good idea to have a few things that are just going to make the house feel warmer, like maybe some kitchen towels so that you can hang one kind of, on the front of the stove or whatever to just add some color to it. Add some more. Same thing with the bathrooms. If you have a couple of extra bathroom towels, like bring them over and put them in there because it'll just add that pop of color. Oftentimes if the property is vacant and it had a shower curtain, the sellers oftentimes take the shower curtains, which I find is kind of funny and entertaining at the same time. So having a couple of inexpensive shower curtains that are kind of neutral, but are nice and pleasing, might be nice as well. So you can just pop those over the shower because it just looks nicer with a shower curtain in there. So things like that, absolutely. Is it necessary? No. Do houses that are staged with like actual furniture, do they sell faster and for more money? Generally speaking, yes. And so if it's a vacant home, you might always have those things that you can place in there. You may also consider, making sure you've got some staging contacts so that you can get some pricing and maybe stage it. If I was going to stage a vacant home, for the most part, I usually stage like the living room area, some stuff in the kitchen, maybe a dining area, and then the master bedroom / bathroom. I don't worry about all the other auxiliary rooms and such, but it will add warmth and feel, and it is proven that staged homes do sell for higher dollar and usually faster. So just something to keep in mind. They also have two now that you can virtually stage properties, and most photographers are doing that as well. And that may be a good thing just to draw people in and give people vision for the space, especially if maybe you're tight on budget, so you don't have a budget for actually staging the property. And sometimes layouts of properties are a little funky, and people are like, I don't even see how I would lay this out. Like, go ahead and invest in that AI staging or virtual staging so that people can see what that layout would look like. I think both options could be good. Absolutely.
Do they generally charge extra for the virtual staging?
They do generally charge extra. It's usually like a per photo charge, I think, for most photographers, or it could be part of one of their packages.
Okay, and we have to note on the picture that it's virtually staged, correct?
You should note on the caption of the photo. Yep.
Perfect, thank you.
Absolutely. Pets. If the sellers have pets, we should have a conversation about what they're going to do with pets while the property is being sold. We do not want to lock pets in garages. We do not want to leave them in backyards to scare people. People want to look through that whole house, be able to open the garage. The most appropriate thing if pets are being left behind is to put them in a crate in the garage, or if there's a dog run or dog kennel outside, that works as well. Just make sure that they have a plan. We want to remove all pet paraphernalia from inside the house when there are showings, because people, even if your house does not smell like cats, the second somebody sees a cat tree, they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, this house smells like cats. No, it doesn't. Your brain's telling you it does because there's a cat tree. So don't let people get tricked into psyching themselves out of writing an offer because they think they see something that they don't. So I always recommend to my sellers, they pull all the pet paraphernalia out of the house, throw it in the garage, do whatever, get the pets out of there. Take them with them when they're showings. Curb appeal, make sure you're checking out that curb appeal. Remember, it's the first thing people see and the last thing people see. That curb appeal is so important, making sure that front yard is cleaned up. Even if it's just weeds, you'll be amazed at what happens when you mow weeds. They look amazing. It almost looks like grass. And then again, my favorite thing is like head down to, one of your local hardware stores or nurseries and pick up one of those cute little pre-done planters that has like 4 or 5 different types of plants in it that add a pop of color. Throw that on the porch, on the walkway leading up to the porch. Something like that just adds a lot of appeal. The other thing is that something really simple that people can do to help curb appeal and just help the look of the house is painting their front door. Put a fresh coat of paint on that front door, like a little quart of paint, all as it usually takes. It's less than $20 for a big win. And the other thing is they have those security screen doors, those metal screen doors. Oftentimes those are rusty. So if theirs is rusty, you may want to recommend that they go get a can of spray paint and they touch up that screen door as well. It will make a difference. Your sellers should always be decluttering their property. People are going to look in their closets. Okay. They are going to open cabinets. And so shoving everything in the closets or cabinets is not going to be a winning deal, because the second we take everything out of the house and we start shoving it in the closets and somebody opens that closet and sees it stuffed full of stuff, they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, this house has no storage. Obviously not enough. I mean, look at how much stuff they have stashed in here, right? We don't want people to think that. So anything they're not going to use in the next 3 months, pack it up, get it out of that house. Okay. The other thing is like your countertops, right? Your kitchen countertops, your bathroom countertops, get everything off of there that you can possibly remove. It just feels more spacious if the countertops have been cleared. In addition to that, during showings, people don't want to know what kind of shampoo you use. They don't want to see your toothpaste. They don't care. So make sure you've got room or a bin. I usually encourage my sellers to like go buy a bin, and then anything that's on their bathroom counters or in their showers when they have showings, just throw everything in that bin, stick it under the sink, and then move on. It just makes it show nicer. And then clean. The house does not have to be deep cleaned, but it should appear to be cleaned. Okay. I don't really care how clean it is. I don't care if you disinfected it or not. I don't care if you just took a wet rag and wiped everything down, but make it look clean. Like wipe down those baseboards, clean those windows. Those things make a difference, I promise. Okay. It's always good to make sure that you've got your vendor list available, have some professional cleaners on there. So you know that if somebody needs some help with that you can give them that list of here's a couple of cleaners you can call to come in and do that cleaning the week before we have our photos scheduled. Any questions before we move on to inspections and photos. Alrighty. Pre-inspections. I like to eliminate surprises with my listings with pre-listing inspections. Some of the things that I am kind of in order of importance here. My first one's generally a structural pest inspection with that Form 33. We have so many military buyers in our area, and they require that clear Form 33 stating there's no active infestation of wood destroying pests on the property. So that's not necessarily dry rot. That Form 33 is just looking for like wood destroying beetles or termites. So that's important. That's usually the cheapest option. The next one that I would go for is a whole home inspection. Let's see what's going to be on that whole home inspection. That way we have an idea of things that maybe we could just have a handyman come in really easily and fix ahead of time, as well as what our buyers going to see when they do their whole home inspection. This is kind of like an insurance policy, your whole home. Number one, most sellers have been in their property for some time. And when you live in your property for a while, you just become accustomed to the house and the quirks of the house. Somebody else isn't going to think that quirk is so cool, and you're going to forget it exists because you just become so accustomed to it. So that whole home inspection is going to help you uncover material defects of the property that you have forgotten about as a seller and help you disclose that information so that you don't fail to disclose something. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. Roof inspection, super simple. That's another inexpensive one to look at the roof, see where we're at on that one. HVAC, right? Your heating and air conditioning system, have that inspected. And then if you've got country property, having that well or septic inspection would also be good. Generally speaking, with country properties, most buyers anticipate paying for their own well inspection, but they anticipate the seller paying for the septic, because with the septic inspection, they also pump the septic system. And so the seller pays to pump their own poo. Okay, so that's kind of how that works. However, that being said, again, we're trying to eliminate surprises. So having that well tested ahead of time to make sure that water doesn't need to be shocked, make sure everything's functioning properly, and have that septic inspection already done and out of the way could be a winner. You may be like, Amy, this is a lot of money to spend up front. You're right. If you had a country property and you had all the inspections done, you're probably looking at about $2,500 in inspections. But let me tell you, if you can get in there and get a handyman to fix some of that stuff or eliminate surprises so we're not falling out of contract for something we weren't aware of, or if we could head off that problem before the property even enters into contract, we might save ourselves a lot more than $2,500. Along with those pre-listing inspections, I usually have those pre-listing inspections done about the week before we go on market. If they're doing a lot of work to the property before we go on market, having that structural pest or the home inspection completed before they start work on the property is kind of a win, because it might point out other things that why they've got somebody else doing work there already that they want to go ahead and take care of and wrap up. We can always do an addendum or make notes on those inspections that this item was corrected, this item was fixed, right? So it's okay to make notes on that and identify what the seller's already taken care of, but having those ahead of time might be a win as well. If they're not doing anything, then usually doing them about a week ahead of time makes them the most accurate with the condition of the property when it actually goes on market. In addition to that week before, we want to do photos. Again, I usually do a pre-photo walkthrough about 24 hours the day before the photos or a couple hours in advance, depending on kind of when my sellers are going to be ready. I just want to make sure everything is as it's supposed to be. Okay, I want to make sure everything got moved like it was supposed to, the furniture's in the right spot, that they've cleaned up, that they're ready for photos. With that, we also need to make decisions like, are we just doing regular photos where we just take basic inside, outside photos? Are we doing drone photography where we're getting those aerial shots? Are we wanting a video walkthrough of the property? Do we want a 360 like clickable walkabout through the property? That's called Matterport. Do you want virtual staging? So all things to think about as you begin to get those photos ordered and ready to go. I usually make those drone photography property specific. Like if the property's got a really big lot or it's got open space behind it or country property, that's where drone comes in. For your basic run-of-the-mill subdivision property, you probably don't need drone photography. So just regular photos are usually good enough for that. Any questions before we move on to the next one? All right. Systems and processes, right? The sooner you create those systems and processes, the happier you will be. I promise you. And when I say systems and processes, I mean like write them down, put them in writing, assign due dates to them. That way, you remember we can always make changes and tweak things as we go, but this way we can create a repeatable, scalable pattern. So as you get busier and busier in your business and you start having more listings, then you know what to do with, and you hire an assistant to help you. Now you've got this system and process you can already have hand off to your assistant to take care of the items, right? So it makes it super easy to scale your business. Deborah, go ahead and ask your question about neighbors.
I have a listing coming up and the house is really cute. The people are taking care of everything, want to do inspections, everything. The neighbors on both sides have nice houses. Both are rentals. Both have 4 feet of weeds. And one side has massive political flags. Any suggestions?
Well, there's nothing you can do about their flags, unfortunately.
Right.
Nor would you want to, because we wouldn't want to mask who these people are moving next to. So we want to make sure they know who their neighbors are. As far as the weeds go, you may reach out if you're able to track down the actual owners of the property, or even go knock on the tenant's door and just say, hey, we're getting ready to put your neighbor's house on the market. And I was wondering if you would be able to, if you have time to mow your lawn, and if they're like, nah, I don't, or I don't have a mower, then you'd be like, perfect. Do you mind if I send a landscaper over just to mow down the weeds for you? I would pay to have those weeds mowed down without
That
a
would be
second
okay
thought.
to do. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would ask them, but yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, right. Going with curb appeal, who your neighbors are important. So if they've got weeds that's overgrown, it's disgusting, like go knock on their door and ask them if they mind if you help them take care of their front yard. Not a big deal. All right. So I have pre-listing emails that I send out to my sellers. I will show you about those here in a minute. My on-market date is almost always on either a Wednesday or a Thursday. The reason that I do that is it shows as a new listing all the way through that full weekend. It gives people time by going on Wednesday or Thursday to see it come on the market, to make plans to see it that coming weekend. And it still allows me, oftentimes I like to set an offer review date of Monday or Tuesday the next week. Usually it's like Tuesday is when offers are due. And that gives everybody out there a solid week to get there to see the property. When we don't have offer review deadlines, right? There's lots of thought process behind the offer review deadlines. When you don't see that, especially if you've got an occupied property, now everyone's trying to get into that property all hours of the day, late at night. You have to just be like, yes, 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 versus actually, Thursday doesn't work. You can see it on Friday, or can we see it during the open house? We're not reviewing offers until, Tuesday or Wednesday, right? So it just gives people more time, so you can be a little bit more strict on those showing hours, especially for an occupied property. And you don't have people like rushing, trying to make last minute showing requests. So it just seems to flow a little bit better that way. When you go on the market on Friday, oftentimes it doesn't give people enough time to get it scheduled into their showing rotation. So some people miss out on it that way. So usually Wednesday and Thursday have kind of proven to be the best days to go on market. Again, those photos and inspections, I usually try to plan at least a week in advance. The sign install date, right? Make a system and process as to when you want to install your for sale sign. Keep in mind that if you're outside the Barry's service area, so if you're not in Mendocino, if you're listing, not you, if your listing isn't in Mendocino, Marin, Solano, Napa, or Sonoma counties, that sign actually can't go in the ground until the 24 hours before you go on market, okay? In those 5 counties, you can put that sign anywhere in the ground anytime. You can throw a coming soon writer on it. It's totally up to you. But in like the Yolo County, Sacramento, your Metro List areas, you have to wait until 24 hours prior to your on market date. And then make sure you have your marketing plan ready to go, documented. When do we start marketing for our open houses? What does that marketing look like? When do we door knock? When does it go into your social media? when, if you're going to do like a zip your flyer, when do you do that? At what point, right? So if you're going to send out just listed or coming soon postcards, when do you do those? So make sure you have all that stuff written down and your ideal time frame of when all those things are going to be executed and happening. Remember, if we're going to mail out postcards one day, we may need to plan the day before to design it. Or if we're going to go door knock, we may need, 3 or 4 days in advance to make sure that we have those flyers created and ready to go. Did somebody have a question?
I did.
Did I answer it?
No, now I'm trying to figure out what it was again. You were talking, oh, so I have mine set to go live Friday.
Okay.
Can I, without doing an SE, without doing a SELM, can I push it for Thursday active, or do I have to do all the paperwork?
Are you going to push it to this Thursday active or next Thursday active?
This Thursday. I'm set to go live on Friday.
Yeah. What does your listing agreement say?
Well, we had to extend it. So we extended it to because it was supposed to go live last Friday.
Okay.
And she was still working on getting stuff out. So we're going to go live this Friday. So she's out, house is empty.
So yeah, if you wanted to change the on market date, you would just need to do a modification of terms, an MT form. It's no longer called modification of terms. It's called like modification of listing agreement, buyer broker agreement terms or something like that. But it's still an MT is the acronym. You'd want to do that just saying on property to begin being marketed to the public on this date.
Okay.
Just so it's documented that whatever you had previously is everybody's in agreement.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yep. Perfect.
Amy, I got a
Also-
question or comment.
Yeah.
So one of the problems that I'm running across, it's not really a problem, but it's all the homeless, right? So my sellers are not interested in putting a for sale sign at all in front of the house because of the attracting people that are homeless that are coming in and squatting in the houses out there in Sacramento. So we just closed the deal last month where 2 weeks prior to my buyer getting their keys, someone got in the house and was squatting. Luckily, the seller got in there and got them out and took care of the damages that were done. But do we have a strategy for handling that kind of stuff? Like as a listing agent, if they don't want signs out? Because I know when I'm walking the doors of the neighborhood, letting them know, hey, I'm having an open house, it's a challenge. Because it's like, yeah, that house is going on the market and the people are looking at me like, what do you mean? I don't see a sign.
Yeah. So number one, I would encourage the sellers to put a sign in the yard that generally speaking, the homeless people are watching no matter what. So they know who's coming and who's going, and who's no longer living in their property, regardless of whether there's a sign in the yard. I have one that's a perfect example in Sacramento right now, no sign in the yard. We've still had people break into it. So the sign may help them sell that property. And so I would just encourage them that way. As a listing agent, I think it's a good idea to have a plan in place for how to handle vacant listings, especially in areas like the Sacramento area where they're having increasing problems with homeless and break-ins and such of those vacant properties. There's 2 options that I would recommend to help secure that property. Number one is you may want to have some conversations with some alarm companies and see if they would be willing to do a temporary system while the property is on market for that property. Chances are, and then you'll let them know the buyer's information or when it closes so that they can reach out and contact the buyer to try to keep that system in place, right? So hopefully with the goal of getting a future contract on that property, they might be willing to work with you and install a temporary system in that property. Number 2, the second option, which I've done on a couple vacant properties, and you kind of have to have the neighbors buy-in on this one. They have systems that are not on the internet, but they have like motion sensor systems. Somebody walks in that property, it's going to set that alarm off. You do have to let people know that are showing the property what the code is and how to turn it off and on. And they're a little bit more cumbersome than your real system through like ADT or whoever your other alarm system companies are. And then if it gets set off when somebody's not showing it, making sure that you have a relationship with one of the neighbors that knows the code, that kind of knows where it's at and can come over and turn it off, or is willing to call you at least, could be a win, just to help keep that property secure, because it's absolutely a problem right now with people breaking into properties with or without signs in the yard. At least if you have a sign in the yard, then the neighbors, if they see suspicious activity going on, they know who to call and they know where to find your phone number. It's a little different than if you walk over and give them your card and they go, oh yeah, perfect, we'll keep it. And if we see anything, we'll call you. Well, when they see something suspicious going on, now they can't find your card. They don't know how to get a hold of you. If your sign's there, people know how to get a hold of you. So I think that sign being there, number one, it could help sell the property faster. Number two, it lets the neighbors know that if you see something, who to call to handle any issues. And then I would have a system in place to handle potential break-ins or some sort of alert system, so you know when somebody's in that property.
Would
Appreciate it. Good news. Good info. Thank you.
Absolutely. Go ahead,
Anastasia. On mine, I put I put my sign out and I put do not disturb occupants.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's a lot of people do that when it's vacant. They do put a sign in the yard and put do not disturb occupants, or appointment only, so that it appears to be occupied still. So that's one way to handle the sign being in the yard. Absolutely. All right, perfect. All right, pre-listing emails. So I have, I believe it's 7 emails that go out to my sellers prior to the listing going on the market. I have the listing agreement. I have to convey or not to convey, California regulations, seller disclosures, the on market, weekly check-in, and congrats. So here is kind of what that looks like. I will copy this link. Hold on. Share. I will throw it in the chat box. Copy link. Done. There you go. That link's in the chat box. I send out the email when we have the signed listing agreement. Thank you again for trusting us to list your home. Our intention is to always make the process smooth and painless as possible. In order to help us market your home correctly and serve you in the best way possible, please complete the following survey. If you click on that link, it'll take you to that survey. You can see it. There is one somewhere. If you want the survey, message me. It's a little cumbersome to share it, but I've created a Google Forms document that basically takes you through everything that needs to be inputted into the MLS for that listing. It asks them what kind of roof they have, what kind of floor coverings they have, if they have solar, if they have a swimming pool, do they have a fireplace? If they say yes, it's going to ask them more questions about that. It's going to ask them for all the seller's information, how they prefer to be contacted, if they have any dogs or kids, right? So ask them all this information. Items to watch for as we get closer to your on-market date. We will need to come by and pick up a spare key if you haven't already given us one. A for sale sign will be installed within 10 days of going on market. If you do not want a sign, please let us know, right? That way we can have that conversation. We will be installing a for sale sign in, those two need to be added together. We'll be installing a for sale sign in your yard to help market to your neighbors and those that may be passing by. It should say then this will be installed within 10 days of going on market. And I probably wouldn't say if you don't want one, I would say if this is an issue, please reach out, right? So I'd kind of combine those and reword them. We'll be scheduling professional photos. You do not need to be home for this appointment. We just ask that you remove or secure any pets in the garage during this time. We will not be photographing the garage or the inside of any closets. I let people know that because oftentimes, because we're doing photos a week in advance of the listing going on market, a lot of people aren't done decluttering. That gives them a place that I can shove everything in the closets for photos, and then I have to finish cleaning out closets or the garage before we go on market. So it gives them that ability. We will be scheduling any pre-listing inspections that we have discussed. This may include a pest, home, and or roof inspection. Sarah or Melina, my transaction coordinator, will be handling all of the paperwork on your transaction. Continue to look for emails from me to help you get your home ready to shine and make this transaction seamless. Here are some steps or tips on prepping your house for photos and sale, right? So I've got interior and exterior tips to prepping it for sale and photos. So that's the first email that goes out as soon as I get a listing agreement signed. Email 2, to convey or not to convey. And the spacing of these emails depends on how much time I have before the listing's supposed to go live. Ideally, they would get one every couple days, kind of leading up to their home going on the market, starting with the listing agreement, and then usually kind of the week before, about the 10 days before they go on market. When selling your home, we have to define what will stay or convey with the home and what will not, and what will go with you or not convey. Typically, items that convey are fixtures, items that are attached to your walls or floor. This includes items such as curtain rods, decorative shelves, garage cabinets, ceiling lights, fans, chandeliers, coats, and towel hooks, ring doorbells, security cameras, devices, and TV mounts. Your personal property, pictures, wall art, mirrors, except bathroom mirrors. This is no longer here. This should go. We're going to take this out. Oh, we're going to go X. There we go. Mirrors, washer, dryer, refrigerators are generally considered personal property and do not convey. I'm going to put these up here. We're going to go curtains, because that's now on the RPA as staying. Other items that stay with the home when sold are your plants in the yard that are in the ground, shed, patio covers, pool equipment to include the pool vacuum, built-in microwaves, stovetops, ovens, and ranges. Are there any items that you do not wish to convey with the property? Are there items that you would like to leave with the property, right? So I'm asking these questions ahead of time, so hopefully I'm getting their mind thinking when they're not complete mush because we're on the market already. Email number 3, California regulations. A few other items we need to pay attention to. The state of California has a few requirements of all homes when they sell. Your water heater needs to be double strapped. You will need to have working smoke detectors in each bedroom. You will need to have a working carbon monoxide detector and smoke detector in the hallway leading to bedrooms. And if you have a 2-story home, you need to have one on each floor. Please make sure this is taken care of prior to your home going on the market. If you need help with these items, please let us know so that we can help facilitate making this happen. Right? Super simple. We're trying to get rid of all those roadblocks that might slow our transaction down. Email number 4 comes from my transaction coordinator. The sign has been ordered for your home and will be installed this week. The following items I need you to complete prior to your home going on the market. Home light. A home light file has been created for your home. All disclosures, inspections, and reports for your property can be found at, and I include the link for that file. Your emails have been linked to this file. Every time the file is updated, you will receive an email notifying you. Glide. Glide is a program we use for the mandatory seller disclosures that need to be completed. Later today, you will receive an email from Glide titled, "Please complete," and then with their address. Mandatory seller disclosures. Please complete all documents this week prior to your home going on market. Please complete the attached seller or the attached document. This item cannot be electronically signed. Once you complete, you can fax, scan, or email. Scan and email, hand it off to Amy to drop off or hand deliver it to title. Social security numbers are required. I recommend leaving your social security number blank and then calling the title office and giving them your social security numbers over the phone. Okay, email, please include the subject line, Old Republic title, attention Nicole Cisneros, whoever you pre-open your escrow with the escrow number there. Okay, this is where I would put the title company name. I would put the rep information there, the address, phone number, fax, and email so that they can get that document over to the title company. That's so the title company can order the payoffs, make sure there's not any additional liens or anything against the property. Don't hesitate to ask Amy or I if you have any questions. Thank you. And that one again comes from my transaction coordinator. Email number 5 goes out, showing your home. You've been set up with your own personal. I use Showing Time to show my properties. You have been set up with your own personal showing app to allow the agents of potential buyers to schedule showings. Please download the app called Showing Time. You will want to create a user based on the email you have provided to us, as that's how we will link the account we created for you to your login. Through this app, you'll receive requests for showings and will be able to approve or deny them. If you deny them, you can propose other times that will work better for your schedule. If possible, do whatever you can to make requested showings work. This app will also keep a calendar of confirmed showings for you so that you can keep your brain straight as we move through this process of selling your home. It will also provide a platform to get feedback from the showings, and later we will be able to schedule inspections here as well. Here are some expectations I have of you to make your home show ready, right? We're lining out expectations before the showings have been scheduled. Vacate the property while it is being shown. Leave the home 10 minutes prior to the scheduled showing time and plan 45 minutes per showing. Turn on all the lights. Keep the house at a comfortable temperature. Open drapes and blinds. Keep pets and pet-related items secured outdoors. Play quiet background music. Light the fireplace if seasonally appropriate and if you're going to be nearby. Infuse home with a comforting scent like apple spice or vanilla. A good way to make your home smell good is to bake cookies right before. It will make your home smell amazing, and people love cookies as they view homes. If you are going to be gone for the day, make sure your home is show ready, even if we don't have any showings scheduled, right? Setting those expectations. Email number 6. Congratulations. Today is the day. Your home is officially on the market. Below, you will find a link to your live listing. Please feel free if you have any questions or please feel free, should say, to contact me. If you have any questions or concerns, here's where I'm going to find the link off my website and put it there for their property. We will update you on your property weekly. You'll receive an email on Monday and a call on Tuesday. When we receive offers, we will notify you immediately to let you know that an offer has been received and set a plan to review offers. Then we would also check to make sure that the Glide disclosures have been completed and that they've signed into their HomeLight listing management file and that they've completed the seller information sheet. If not, I'm going to attach a reminder to that email. Email number 7 goes out once we are in contract. It's just congratulations, we're in contract. Here's the key information. And that's the same thing with 8. So there's my emails that go out to my sellers as part of the pre-listing process to make sure that I cover all of my bases and set expectations appropriately. Any questions on those emails? All right. Let's see here. Showing the property, right? So now we are on market. We want to make sure that I think I skipped a slide. There we go. Scheduling. What do you want to use to schedule, right? Creating systems and processes. Are people going to call you? Are people going to schedule it through the app? I like showing time. I know some agents are against it because of who owns it. I like it because it removes me from that showing process. So I can go ride my horses and not have to worry about having cell reception, and people are still scheduling to see my listings. Super fabulous. I don't have to be available for every single phone call. It also makes the seller part of the team. You could always ask the seller to collect any cards for the agents that pass through and to call you or to shoot over a photo of the card so that you can make sure to follow up with that agent. You could also ask the seller to, hey, keep an eye on that flyer box if you're going to choose to use one, and let me know when it's nearly empty, right? So you can ask them to participate and be part of that team. That's totally appropriate to do. Me personally, I'm not a big fan of flyer boxes. Number one, you got to keep them full and they get wet and there's all sorts of things that happen. I'm actually trying a new system where I'm having signs made. They're about $30 a piece for each listing that has a QR code specific to that or a text-to code specific to that listing so that people can either scan it or do the text-to get the information about that listing. I think it's a little bit more effective way to do it. And it kind of makes it fun. So I'm trying this out. Canva makes for sale signs, the corrugated ones that like stick in the yard. So you can do it that way. They also do sign writers. Canva is amazing. In addition to that, we want to make sure to contact the showing agents for feedback. I wouldn't do it like, hey, you just showed my property 10 minutes ago. What did you guys think? I would reach out probably the next day. Hey, just following up on how your showing went. What was the feedback? I'd like to provide it back. If you're using an app like Showing Time, it'll automatically send them questions to solicit feedback. Then I only call the agent if I don't get feedback within a couple of days. When you get feedback on the property, don't defend your listing or the price. just report, right? Stay professionally neutral. So, and then also same thing with, as you're reporting that to your sellers, I usually wait and report it all every Monday. Here's the feedback that we have received on your property, right? And we kind of put it in report. That's why in my email, it said, hey, you'll get an email from us on Monday. I'm going to pull up all the listing activity that we had. We had X number of showings. We had 10 people pass through the open houses per our online report. You know, there's been X number of buyers interested or seen your property online, right? That's all going out. Here's the feedback that we received. That's all going out on Monday. Tuesday, I'm going to call them and follow up with them on that. Okay. So that we know whether we're on track, whether we've gotten any offers, whether we need to do some sort of price adjustment. Also, when we're talking with the other agents on the phone, we need to be cautious about the info that we reveal about the property and our sellers. So material facts, absolutely. But remember your duty of fiduciary duty. We have to keep information confidential. So telling people why our sellers are selling may give them ideas of how motivated they are or how unmotivated, right? So we want to be careful with that. So just remember to be cautious. All right. Finally, the offer arrives. Super exciting. I only contact my seller when I actually have an offer in hand. Oftentimes agents will call you and say, hey, we're thinking about writing, or my buyer's going to write on your property, and they ask you a bunch of questions. And then hours go by, a day goes by, we still have no offer. And if we turned around and said, hey, seller, good news, I just talked to an agent and they said they're going to send over an offer. Now, 2 days later, we got to say, yeah, so unfortunately, they decided not to write. So I don't tell my sellers that I have an offer until I've seen the offer come into my inbox or into whatever system I'm using to receive offers. Sometimes most offers are sent over electronically. Some, they do have the ability to request to present their offer in person. I've yet to ever have a buyer request to do that, but it is possible, so just be aware of that. And be prepared to provide a net sheet for each offer or an estimated seller proceeds for each offer. So just kind of be aware of that. If you have escrow opened with a title company, you could ask them to at least do the first one. Or oftentimes most title companies have where you could do an online net sheet. I know Fidelity has it, Placer Title has one, Old Republic has one. It's a pretty simple system to go in there and use, and gives you a solid idea of what they would be looking at. When we go to negotiate the offers, make sure you learn scripts for presenting less than perfect offers, right? I always encourage my sellers to go for win-win solutions and at least counter an offer that has come in, especially if it's the only offer on the table. Sellers like to get their feelings hurt because this is, you know, their property and they love it. However, and then sometimes they're like, oh, well, that's so offensive. It's way lower, or we've only been on the market for a week and I can't believe they came in below asking. Like, what were they thinking? And they get their feelings hurt and they don't want to counter. I always encourage them to at least counter the offer back at terms that are more acceptable, because then at least it shows that we're playing ball. Your options are your multiple counter offer or your seller counter offer if you're going to counter. So if you've received more than one offer and you're going to counter more than one of them, we would do a multiple counter offer versus a regular single counter offer. And we also want to help the sellers understand that oftentimes they're going to get price or terms, but oftentimes not always both. So we want to make sure they stay realistic, and we want to make sure that we understand what is the most important to them. Like if they're like, man, we really need a 60-day escrow, and the offer came in below asking, but it gave them that 60-day escrow, or we've got an offer that, you know, came in at or a little above asking, but they want to move in 30 days, we need to have a conversation with a seller about what is most important to them. Is staying in the property for 60 days the most important, or is the price the most important? Okay. And then remember, we can always counter. Usually if it's something like that, I'm going to counter a seller or a buyer on an offer. I'm going to have a conversation with the buyer's agent so that I kind of know where the wiggle room is for those buyers. Once we have the accepted offer, we're going to follow our transaction checklist to get through the close of escrow. I do have a transaction action plan right here. So if, I will share this one as well in the chat box. There's one for the purchase and one for the listing. This just gives you an ideal transaction. What would happen start to finish? So you can make sure to check all the items off your list. It's in the chat box. Make sure you hire a transaction coordinator. Make sure you understand SkySlope or your compliance software so that you know how to do it in case something happened to your transaction coordinator. But a transaction coordinator is a great buy. Melina does it in our office. She's fabulous. Pay the money to have her TC your file. They handle all the paperwork for them. So they make sure, or for you, so that nothing gets missed. You want to make sure to communicate with your client during the contract to close process, right? Communicate with them often and set expectations. So if congratulations, you're in contract, you'll hear from me by Thursday at the latest, to let you know kind of when they've scheduled any inspections for, right? So we want to let them know when they're going to hear from us next so that they always know what to expect. You also want to make sure that you're in constant communication with the other agents, staying on top of them. Hey, have you gotten your inspection scheduled yet? Perfect. Hey, did you have all the disclosures that you need? Hey, right, we always are asking questions to make sure that we're moving forward. And we can also call the lender of the buyers on regular intervals as well to make sure that process is running along smooth. Hey, just checking in to see if the appraisal was ordered. Very good. Does it say that it was assigned to somebody yet? Very good. Just making sure that all the initial disclosures have gone out. When do you expect to submit the file to underwriting, right? So we can ask all those questions to make sure we're moving along during the process. Assuming that we got all of our disclosures done up front, we got our NHD report, we've got our seller title information, they chose our title company that we pre-opened escrow with. There's not a lot for the sellers to do during this escrow period because everything has been done. All they're doing is communicating, hey, you need to be out of the house at this time so they can do inspections or investigations. Here's how things went, right? So we're just moving along through that process, but they don't have a whole lot to do during that time. Steps to a successful transaction. Number one is opening escrow. We got to get a copy of that contract, any addendums, amendments, and counter offers over to the title company. Also needs to go over to the buyer's agent and the lender as well. Within ideally 24 hours, but 48 hours max of accepted contract, we want to make sure to complete our visual inspection disclosure. I always encourage our agents not to do it prior to entering into contract because it is your recollection of the property, any material issues that have arisen at time of contract. It's also your proof of the condition of the property at time of contract. Ensure all disclosures are complete and, and sent to the buyer's agent. Again, I like to use HomeLight Listing Management for that, and I send the buyer's agent that link, and then that way, anytime something new comes in, we just upload it to that and send out a notification. Buyers are going to complete any investigation they have of the property. The appraisal is going to be completed. We're going to negotiate any repairs that are requested. We're going to make sure those contingencies are removed, and we're going to be prepared to send notices to perform. Okay. Don't hesitate to send a notice to perform. We're protecting the interests of our sellers. We don't care if the buyers get their feelings hurt. If a contingency removal is due and we don't have it, they're getting a notice to perform. That's just how we do business. Again, this comes down to this, like, how do I represent both a buyer and a seller in the same transaction? My goal with my buyer is to not turn over that contingency removal form until the close of escrow. Okay, I want to keep that as long as possible. My goal as a seller is to get that buyer to turn in that contingency removal form. It's two separate transactions. And how do I protect both interests? When I know I'm going to run this transaction like a tight ship, it just makes it really difficult. And then you're going to prepare to close escrow. Remember, I said have that conversation with that lender. Those closing disclosures need to go out to the buyers 5 days prior to the close of escrow. So we need to stay on the lender, be checking in once the appraisal's been completed, once the file's been underwritten. Perfect. Have you sent out the closing disclosure to your buyers yet? When do you expect that to go out? Perfect. I'll follow up with you then. Hey, just checking back in. Have you sent out that closing disclosure? Because we know once that closing disclosure has gone out, the buyers have to wait 3 days before they can sign documents. So we need it 5 days prior to the close of escrow. So just some things to prepare for, make sure things are rolling in the right direction. How to handle closing. sellers should leave the property swept, clean, and free of trash. Sellers do not have to professionally clean the property, okay? I always let my sellers know this so that they don't stress. Most sellers are going to go above and beyond in getting the property clean. Some are not, okay? We can let sellers know that they can't cancel utilities until the scheduled close of escrow date, but we do want to remind them to do that. We want to make sure that they leave systems ready for buyers. That would be like their, if they have a like Nest thermostat control, Ring doorbells, if they can control their pool equipment on the internet, if they have a solar monitoring system for their solar, right? They have a security system. The buyer's going to need the information to access all of those systems. Okay. I always encourage my sellers to leave any extra keys, remotes, or instructions in one of the kitchen drawers. And then I leave the key in the lockbox, which gives the buyer the access to be able to, or the buyer's agent access to provide the key to the buyer after close of escrow. Is the seller remaining after close of escrow? We just need to talk about what that time frame looks like, set those expectations and remind them. And then I always try to do a walkthrough of my listings before the keys are handed over to the buyers. Okay, once my sellers move out, I do a quick walkthrough to make sure they did in fact get all the trash out of the property, make sure we're not going to run into any issues when the buyers go to get keys to that property. Okay, any questions about that process? The other thing to remind your sellers once the close of escrow has happened and they have moved out is to call their insurance company and cancel their homeowner's insurance. They will get a prorated refund of the amount remaining on their homeowner's insurance policy. Okay. And then the after the sale follow-up system, again, we'll dive more into this next week, but I would highly recommend sending out a thank you gift. Consider something lasting. And I don't do this at the close of escrow. I do it about a month after the close of escrow. Again, remind your sellers to cancel their homeowner's insurance and any utilities if they hadn't done it previously. Update your contact management system with their new address of where they moved to. And then make sure you ask for feedback. How did I do? What could I do better? And what did I do extremely well? Get that feedback before you ask for reviews so that you know how that review is going to go. Let's see here. You're also going to set your automatic follow-up reminders in your CRM for monthly or phone calls, texts, monthly newsletters, market updates, anniversaries, birth dates, etc. Again, we'll dive more into this next week. Any questions before we wrap up for today? I know it was a lot of information. All right, everybody's.
It was very, very helpful. A lot of questions answered. Since I have one going live, so thank you.
You are welcome. And make any suggestions for trainings that you'd like to see between now and the end of the year. My next training schedule will come out soon for July, August. There will be no trainings the first week of July, which is July 4th week. So that week we will take off. Enjoy time working your business and time with your families. And we'll resume that week after. Fabulous. I will see you guys all later. What?
Where are we going?
I don't know yet.
Sorry. I hope my husband didn't pick up.
All right. Fabulous. I will see you guys all later. Have a fabulous day. No class tomorrow due to Juneteenth. The office is also closed.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.